Good morning, everybody. How you doing? You can unmute yourselves now.
Good morning. Everything is great.
That's great. They're in Maryland and
yeah,
they're in Pennsylvania and they're in Williamsburg.
Hello.
We're all over. Hi, Jennifer.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Nicole. Dolores.
Good morning.
So the music that you just heard, this is the Healing Project. I'm Carolyn Jones. And the music you just heard is Apsihati Hoa. And it was produced and performed by my mentor and friend, my yogi, Amin Bir Singh. Apsihati Hoa means you, divine one, have become my refuge. True is your support, great, creative, infinite. It's a pretty informal setting, so feel free to raise your hand. You know, you have the reaction icon on your Zoom strip there at the bottom. And you could use that, or you could just raise your hand, you know, the old-fashioned way. How you doing, Dolores? So we want to hear from you. So let's make this very interactive. We have a wonderful guest. We want to welcome all of our illustrious guests: Matthew Wood, registered American herbalist, author. He's my mentor and friend. Jocelyn Perez Blanco, who is environmental herbalist, and she is the organizer for the Herbalist Meetup Group, chapter coordinator for Herbalists Without Borders. Also, Rebecca Ellman, the friend of Jennifer Ann Tucker, and my cousin, Dolores Jones Danner. And we'll meet more of our friends later. I'm certainly happy to see Nicole Alford here. She's also my friend, and I look forward to her feedback after this first experience. Today, we'll be talking about detoxification of the kidneys. So why don't we just take this moment to breathe. Take a deep breath, close your eyes, hold it, tighten your body, release the breath and the tightness. Do it again. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, hold it tight, 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 and release. One more time, but first I want you to rub your hands together real fast and get that energy together. Gather it and put it over your eyes. Take a deep breath, hold, tighten, and release. And when you're ready, you could gently put your hands down and we'll move forward. Today, we're talking about detoxification of the kidneys, and I would like to share with you some of the kidney functions. The kidney removes waste products from the body. It removes drugs from the body, balances the body's fluids, releases hormones that regulate blood pressure, produces an active form of vitamin D that promotes strong, healthy bones, and controls the production of red blood cells. Along with the kidney, I thought it important to mention the spleen. The spleen functions are that it resembles a large lymph node and acts primarily as a blood filter. It plays a major role in red blood cell production and supports the function of the immune system. It circulates nutrients to the tissues and muscles, and weakness is experienced in the muscles when the spleen is undernourished. The spleen also controls sleep. The spleen manages our thoughts, the ability to concentrate, exercise discernment, and form intention. I was really surprised to hear that the spleen had that deep a function, because we don't talk about the spleen, do we? Mm-hmm. So now the organ and the emotion, we're going to match that up. The kidneys, the emotion associated with the kidneys is fear. The emotion associated with the liver is anger. And all of this is according to traditional Chinese medicine. The organ associated to sadness and grief are the lungs. The spleen is associated with worry. And the heart, who knew, was associated with joy. So we want to keep our heart light as a feather. And to begin doing that, I have an affirmation from you. I was listening to Louise Hay. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Louise Hay, but she's deceased now, but she has wonderful videos online. Affirmations, You Can Heal Yourself, that's from her book. And I was listening to her affirmations this morning and decided to make it my own in the sense of reshaping it for my message to you today. So if you would all unmute, I would like to hear your voices. Jennifer, Alexis, please go first.
I am willing to release the pattern in me that has created spiritual, physical, mental, and emotional imbalances.
Thank you. Dolores?
I am willing to release the pattern in me that has created spiritual, physical, mental, and emotional imbalance.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right. Development?
I am willing to release the pattern in me that has created spiritual, physical, mental, and emotional imbalances.
Yes.
My sister.
Oh, I can't see, as you can see. So how you doing?
Hi, it's been a while.
I was wondering if you had arrived as yet.
Yes, I have.
Yes, would you please do the affirmation with us and for us?
And I'm going to tap while I'm doing it. I am willing to release the pattern in me that has created spiritual, physical, mental, and emotional imbalances.
Very wonderful. What she's speaking of is energy tapping. And we have gone over that in previous classes. Thank you for bringing that into our space. Nicole?
Hello, good morning.
Good
I
morning,
am
my love.
I am willing to release the pattern in me that has created spiritually, physically, mental, and emotional imbalances.
Yes, wonderful. Rebecca?
Hi. Yes,
Hi.
I'm here.
Yeah,
Hi.
Rebecca?
Here we go.
Yeah.
Hi. I am willing to release the pattern in me that has created spiritual, physical, mental, and emotional imbalances.
Fantastic. And Matthew is coming on. Jennifer, while he comes on, would you do your affirmation?
I sure will. And I am willing to release any patterns in me that have created spiritual, physical, mental, and emotional imbalances.
Thank you. And Matthew, you're just in time. How you doing this morning?
Hi there. Yeah.
Hi. You're just in time to recite the affirmation all on your own. Go ahead.
I am willing to release the pattern in me that has created spiritual, physical, mental, and emotional imbalances.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And thank you for coming. We already announced you in great anticipation that you'd be here.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's a good thing I figured out how to sign in.
That's great. So we're going to talk about herbs and tinctures for the kidney and spleen. For kidney support, I chose dandelion tea, marshmallow root, juniper, nettles, parsley, red clover, ginger, and goldenrod. For spleen support, I chose green tea, jasmine, raspberry leaf, chai, ginseng, cardamom, cinnamon, and black pepper. And as long as we have other herbalists here, which I'm very excited about, we want to chime in on anything regarding some teas that I might have left out or some herbs I might have left out or tinctures.
Oh, geez, so many. So many possibilities.
Yes. Give us three.
Well, let's see. Nettles would certainly be the top. So that's that. And dandelion leaf would be more at than the root. Yeah, let's see. And goldenrod. I love goldenrod. Yes.
Yes.
So you've covered a lot of the real basics. Goldenrod has a tired back too.
Oh, okay. And just to let you all know, because we've had this conversation before, and Devella, you have asked me outright. I took the vaccine yesterday. And for purposes of your research, Matthew, I called in last night to get babied by Matthew and Jennifer because I did it under duress. And so this morning, I don't have any, adverse reactions other than I do have soreness on my arm. Of course, that's expected with any shot. I do feel a little tired, but you know what I'm going to attribute that to? Not the vaccine. You all had me so excited. I didn't get to sleep till 4:30 this morning. I mean, I took Blue Vervain. I took Rescue Remedy. I took just about everything on my coffee table that I use. And I just couldn't calm the excitement until I did breathing exercises and just acted like my own parent and said, you're going to sleep. Okay. So I would say that so far, so good. My goal is to continue bolstering my immune system and sort of take it slow since I feel tired. And when I go outside, just bundle up and not make it a whole day outside. I want you to share with everyone, because we had this conversation before, what your reaction to your shot was. I took Johnson & Johnson.
Hey, Carolyn. I took the Pfizer,
Mm-hmm.
and I've had my first 2 shots, including the booster.
Mm-hmm.
And I got my booster and my flu shot on the same day. I was really brave.
Wow.
Yeah. My
That's my
first
cousin,
shot, I
Matt.
did get a skin reaction.
Mm-hmm.
But my
Skin
skin broke
reaction?
out really bad.
Where?
Right up beneath my breast. My skin broke out really bad.
Mm-hmm.
And like it was actually raw.
Wow.
And then the second shot, I didn't get any reaction whatsoever. But the third shot, I felt like I was sick the next day. I don't know if that was a combination of me taking the flu with the booster, but I laid on the couch the whole day. But that first shot kind of got me. So I was very, very tired. I had a really bad rash, and
So how did you get rid of the rash, Dolores?
I used some cream I had back there. I can't remember what it was right now.
Mm-hmm.
But I literally just didn't wear a bra.
I hear you.
Kind of aired things out a little bit.
Sure.
Yeah.
And how many days was the rash with you?
It was about 3 to 4 days.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, about 3 to 4 days.
Mm-hmm.
And I reported it. You know how they had us calling in, or like they would send you a text so you could give them an update on if you were having any side effects. So I did let them know I got a rash. But after that, I didn't. Everything was fine. The second shot, I said it was good. I didn't have any side effects at all. No tiredness, no nothing.
Okay, that's good. That's good. We want to have as few side effects as we can muster up, you know. And Jennifer and I were having a discussion about the rash situation. Now, Matthew, Dolores is my cousin. Just so you know, say hi, cousin Dolores.
Hey.
Hi, Matthew.
Yes, Jennifer Ann Tucker is the Jennifer I'm referring to. You said that you and Matt were having a conversation about rashes.
Oh yeah, we did.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. A friend
So
who
which one
had
of
the
you would like
Johnson
to chime in?
2 weeks later had a rash all over her legs. And I had mentioned that to Matthew. And Matthew, I think you can share what you said, that was a good, strong immune response that showed, if I'm correct with how you stated it, that she had a good immune system, and that in your homeopathic way of viewing things, the exiting of the body through the skin of rash, and possibly the lower part of the body, is a good sign. So,
And what about under the breast, Matthew? What does that mean?
Well, let's see. So a rash would be like your immune system reacted and it threw the toxin, either the vaccine created some toxins or you already had some. In the case, in both these cases, I think they already had some toxins, and the rash and the vaccine made the body react against them more and threw them to the surface, and so that's good. So I always say you want a rash on your skin, not on your brain. and so the skin is the right place. You know, like the throat would be maybe the next place, but so the skin is top notch. That's like your system's throwing it out. And under the breast, I would guess there might have been some lymphatic stagnation or something, and that it somehow caused that to react. So, like, if that had formed like swollen glands, you know, that wouldn't have been as, you know, good a reaction because it didn't come out to the surface. So a rash is releasing things, and it's hard to believe it's just totally due to the vaccine, that it's some something that's stuck in you already that you gotten out. So I look upon that as good. So yeah, our ancestors, when they had smallpox and stuff, when the rash didn't come out, that's when they were in trouble. So
okay. And Devella, could you have your sister chime in, introduce your sister, and I have her chime in as well?
Hi, I'm Dave May, and my sister is Barbara Bach, and she's visiting, and I will let her chime in.
Yes, Barbara,
What would
please
you
tell
like
the
me to
people what
say?
you do and why I've asked you to chime in.
Oh, wonder why. Let's see. I have a long history of working naturally with health issues, using a variety of modalities, preferably the energy. I'm an energy worker. And I'm able to move energy around and see it and understand it, and understand the body from an energy perspective. I've been trained as a registered nurse and a massage therapist and a colon hydrotherapist, and I got lists all over the places. So I just now combine everything that I've learned along the way, and including the affirmation. She's always been one of my teachers. And tapping is another one. And so I think that's why you wanted me to chime in. I use essential oils every night with the diffuser. I also work with crystals. I just take all the natural things that God has provided for us and use them to work to bring health and thriving into our physical bodies. I learned a long time ago from a teacher, Hannah Kroger, out in Boulder, which I'm getting ready to go to now, that the body can heal itself, that it is an energy system, and it is intelligent. And if we just ask it, listen to it, respond to it, it'll do whatever it is we need it to do if we trust it.
Yes.
So that's kind of been my model, to understand the wisdom of the body.
Yes,
Okay,
that is so beautiful. I appreciate that. What I would like to add to that is, as a result of getting the vaccine, all of the pining for, you mentioned crystals. They have a wonderful crystal exhibit at the American Museum of Natural History. And American Museum of Natural History, that involves gems. They have this huge, I believe it's an amethyst in the middle of the room, and I've been wanting to get in that room. I've been in the crystal exhibit before, and it's just so beautiful. So I will be able to go to American Museum of Natural History, the New York Botanical Garden, everything that I was closed away from because I had not gotten the vaccine. So I'm going to make it count. Okay.
I was in where was that? John of God, Brazil. And I came into Abadan, which is the capital, and I went to a. I'm sorry, my phone is ringing, and I don't know how to shut it off without.
Don't worry with it. Don't worry with it.
But they had a place, and I don't remember quite what it was, but it was filled with crystals, and you walk through the atrium, and the atrium in the top of it was a huge amethyst, and then on just below it was like a labyrinth, and you would walk it. It was the most powerful experience. Yes.
Oh my!
One of the most powerful experiences I have ever had. Okay,
I love
Brazil is loaded with amethyst, and I mean they had a 24-inch ashtray made out of amethyst. An ashtray. I mean, it blew my mind. But anyway, that was like 2009 that I was there. But
wow.
Yeah. So.
Thank you for sharing that. Matthew, did you want to say anything about the spleen before we move on? You're on mute, dear.
Yeah, well, I don't want to sneeze or something, you know what?
Oh, yeah, that's all right. Yeah.
But okay, so red root is I would definitely add to the spleen.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And that dissolves tumors as well.
Yeah, well, that's one of the great lymphatic cleansers, but it also is for swollen spleen and so on like that. I mean, it's not as warming. Like the chai spices are kind of the classic spleen in the East.
Yes.
So, and you could make a good chai here. Wow, this would be add all these together, and you'd have an excellent cup of tea.
Yes, no doubt. Because it's from the Ayurvedic system, true?
Yeah.
Mhm.
The Chinese recognize those too. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, they would use those. Yeah.
Well, now that we've explored the kidney and the spleen and each other, it's time for the moment we've been waiting for. I certainly have. With flower essences, and we have Jennifer Ann Tucker, who is our presenter and my friend, my sister friend. And what you're looking at is an altar that she actually made for one of my mourners and sent the photograph of. There's a whole story behind that. She was born and raised in Bismarck, North Dakota during the 1950s and enjoyed a creative and imaginative childhood influenced by an artistic mother and a naturalist father who taught her the ways of nature and the outdoors. Her herbal background is that Jennifer and her husband Jerry moved to Pennsylvania in 1969, where she met Evelyn Snook, Bill Russell, and Keith Wilson. They were three very gifted herbal healers who awakened her destiny in wild food foraging and plant healing traditions. She apprenticed herself to them in the 1970s, working side by side in non-classroom settings, which I'm about to indulge in a little foraging action. You'll be proud of me, Matthew. They traveled around the state foraging in wild places. Jennifer also learned plant identification in the field, when and how to harvest for potency, what part of the plant is for food or medicine, and to take only what is needed, and all methods for preparing the plants for healing purposes. Learning to apply many healing skills, including flower essences on her own body, mind, spirit, and then with family, willing friends, and animals, including but not limited to horses. And look at Jennifer and Pogo. Aren't they cute together? Oh God, I love this picture. Now, one of her mentors and mine, we're sharing him, is Matthew Wood. And she indicated that his book, 7 Herbs, talks about plants as teachers from a flower essence point of view. And Matthew, I'm going to need you to autograph my book, because as soon as she said it to me, I jumped online and got it.
Yeah.
With experience, Jennifer says, comes responsibility to give back what had been so generously given and actively shared and taught at medical and holistic conferences around Pennsylvania. So Jennifer designed and taught a monthly year-long herbal studies course for 6 years, in addition to giving private herbal and flower essence consultations in her home. Jennifer authored Evelyn's Ways, Cleansing and Nourishing with Plants, a great book if you're so inclined to add it to your library. I certainly have it, in honor of her mentor, Evelyn Snook, to document the healing ways that she used plants. And look at Evelyn. Look at those two spirits together. You can feel it, can't you? Yes, there's the book, Evelyn's Ways.
She just picked violets.
Yes, Jennifer?
That was a beautiful picture of her sitting on a lawn full of dandelions in bloom and picking violets. And they were both in bloom on her lawn at the same time. And I always think of her when it comes to the violets.
Oh, that's so beautiful. And I love violet leaf. Now, the botanical series created by Jennifer Ann Tucker is a beautiful, beautiful presentation. And I'm proud to say that for my writing with Mother Earth Living, I have invited her to be the contributing photographer. So she makes my work shine. I'd like to bring you Jennifer Ann Tucker.
Thank you, Carolyn. This is, you have to know a little background that I have not really taught on Zoom until Carolyn kind of dragged me out of my cave here on the farm. So she's actually helped produce a lot of this. So I'm very honored today to be participating. And I have met all of you, many of you already earlier on some of her wonderful healing offerings with this pandemic series. And I would like Carolyn to continue in some form, at least, on these, because I think they're very valuable. So what we've designed a little bit is to have you stroll through a flower garden today. And in that, I would like your participation as well. But I'll be doing a little background on foundational aspects of the flower essences and how they're made, because I think it's important to know that. I won't be doing too much of the history. There's a lot of information if you want to pursue it, and flower essence makers online. So I'll leave that for your curiosity later. But I see that Davella and maybe others of you have already really experienced the energy body. And I appreciate your sharing that, Davella, as well as the crystals. So with that, water, because we chose the kidneys, is the organ that has that amazing element in our body to distribute. So water on the planet is also our major form, and we come out of water. I was thinking about all of the metaphors and all of the symbolism of water, how it changes, how it can crystallize, how before we actually come in to take that first breath, we're floating in a water environment in our mother's womb. So that we all have in common. And I think this is where I connected in developing this particular thing for Carolyn, a real link to how flower essences are made that I had not made in a real clear way yet. So I think the interesting ways of combining things encourages even our own learning as we think we're teaching. So I think I'm teaching today at the same time I'm learning. So we can move to the next slide, but here I want you to read how water does take on, because this is important for the flower essences to understand, that the water itself as the medium that we use, and there'll be a picture later to show this, records the information. And that is what we then can take into our bodies to talk to the water element in our own bodies.
And I imagine,
look how much
I imagine that's very important for drinking water too, to keep your body hydrated.
Yeah, I'm going to take a sip now. Thanks, Carolyn.
Okay. And I just want to mention that was Barbara who talked about the crystals.
Okay. So in a way to honor water every day, it comes out of our faucets, but I like to pour a little water in a glass, my glass that I'm going to be drinking the water from during the day, and set it in the sunlight on my windowsill. You can also, with Emoto's work, if you want to back up to that first slide again on the hidden messages of water by that author.
Okay.
When he
now-
crystallized water, so you remember when we were working with
Yes.
Emoto, that author, and I kind of went off track there, but the water element that he discovered as a scientist is he took water from all over places in the world and crystallized it and found the form and pattern was different depending on what happened to that water. So if it came from a very contaminated place, it could not crystallize into any beautiful forms that organized itself. So water couldn't organize itself. So the other aspect of that water is that if he sang to it or placed music or even said the word love and had that intention towards the water, it would then crystallize in an organized and beautiful form.
Yes.
So that's very meaningful for even how we have to make this transition when we float flowers on water and think, how can that benefit us if there's no physical property? Well, it's the water speaking to our water would be my simple way of saying it. So
That's a
we
beautiful
can move
way
to the
say
next
it.
slide.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way of explaining it, Jennifer. And I just want to tell the people you can put in Emoto or water, and beautiful videos will come up telling you about his work. Okay, you would really want to avail yourself. Thank you, Jennifer.
Mm-hmm. So the flower essences are made by placing them, the fresh flowers. So when you saw Evelyn sitting in her dandelion yard, that would be a day when the plant is at its highest exaltation of expression of blooming. And I know in our country, in the East and where we have dandelions, that's a little bit of the day when all the men get out on their lawnmowers and start cutting it down. I think that's one of the reasons I moved to the country, because I didn't want the city's requirements telling me that I had to behead my plants, my beautiful plants. So it's that exaltation of the plant. And when we think of how plants have evolved on the planet, the energy for us to be able to walk around in a body and take breath is due to the fact that they evolved to the point of creating flowers. And so it mirrors in many ways or speaks to our own sense of soul development and our personality development as the highest expression of what we have purpose for when we come into life here. So we have the fresh picked flowers, and we're not using like flowers that we bought from the local beautiful florist. These are often the flower essence makers that I know and that I am. We try to find those in a wild environment. A lawn to me out here on my farm is a wild environment because they are choosing where they want to grow. That's different than planting. And certainly you can have a beautiful intentional garden that's grown organically and use those flowers as well. So the plant is left in a bowl and it's exposed to all the elements, the air, the fire of the sun. And this is what creates us as well as the flower essence. So we'll move on. So when you begin to see the pictures that'll be coming of the flowers, I've noticed that when I place these flowers in the bowl on top of the water, little bubbles form in the water. And also there's this prismatic aspect, which is all colors. It's like a rainbow within because it's just the spectrum under which we live and what our eyes can see. So we then stabilize the flower essence in order to use it in other seasons, travel with it. It's just our convenient way of doing this. So it does need to be stabilized, or you can just use it right away when you make it.
Mhm.
So the mother essence is a way of categorizing what came off the water in the very first generation of seeing those flowers and waiting for them to fulfill their transference of information to the water. So this one was you'll meet lilac later on, but I always like to record what else was going on that day. So this was made on May 1st, and it's amethyst. We've talked about amethyst already today. Amethyst was on the outside of the bowl, and lilac were the flowers inside the bowl. And it was made at 8 a.m., harvested at 10:30. And it was a cloudy day with cool, moist air. And the lilacs were in heavy perfume. And their buds were starting to open too. So that's what I have on the bottle of the mother bottle. And from the mother bottle, you can go to the next slide. Is a stock bottle, which is usually a small dropper bottle that then 7 drops from the mother bottle are used to potentize the stock bottle. And that can be a spray bottle for spraying, but about this much is added of a little bit of brandy, a little bit of glycerin, or a little bit of vinegar as a preservative. And the rest is filled with spring water. And then your 7 drops are put in from the mother. That's the traditional way that I was taught by Ellen Everett Hopman, who came to speak on one of the workshops that Evelyn was giving in Pennsylvania a long time ago. And when I learned how to make flower essences with her, it was like magical to me. I thought, there is such a thing as magical in the world. And I want to continue to believe in that because it softens sometimes the harshness. So a dosage in the stock bottle is usually 2, 3, 4, or 5 drops. I use my intuition with this, but also if any of you are interested in numerology, you can use those numbers as another additional way to potentize the flower essence. So 2 drops would be the partnership, 3 is the creativity, 4 is the practicality in the world of manifestation, and 5 is change.
Wow.
So, and it doesn't always have to go in the mouth. I know we're very mouth oriented with our quote medicines, but the beautiful thing about flower essences is they can change the room the way music does. So sometimes with my clients who work with other clients, like in healthcare offices or lawyers, places where you have sometimes an intense exchange of conversation and information, it's good to cleanse the room, and it's not going to have an odor aspect for allergy concerns for some. And it really does change and freshen the energy so that we aren't always picking up things. And by doing so, we then are also teaching ourselves to have that sense of auric respect, of auras and energies of other people as well as ourselves and the space that we work in. So I think the flower essences have taught me so many of these more subtle ways to live in the world and respect these invisible energies that we aren't often taught through other systems of education. So again, these essences, if you ever want to explore an aspect of yourself and then begin to share them with others, you can know that they're safe. So I've often handed these bottles to people visiting people in the hospital, and they come back with such beautiful experiences, because sometimes they're either fearful about visiting or the environment is challenging. It always was for me before I learned about flower essences. When I visited Jerry's grandmother in the hospital, I carried a sprig of rosemary simply so that I felt like my intention there could be purified and not distracted by what causes me a lot of stress, which is a hospital environment and the smells and everything else. So any way that you want to use your plants, they're going to have the energy and the soul, just like we have, and that you can connect with. So it doesn't always have to be this in a bottle, but for purposes today, we're teaching how to do this. So they're safe for anyone, even on pharmaceuticals, even on psychological pharmaceuticals. And I have found here they can be extremely beneficial for those people, because if a person has gone on the medications for their stress or anxiety that are pharmaceuticals or antidepressants at a challenging time in their life, they may be ready at any time to be able to examine the more subtle ways of the patterns that led them there. And they're still safely can be taking the medication if they need it and can depend on it. So that is one of the things too that you don't need to be afraid of in sharing these. I guess one of the things that I loved was it was a way that I didn't have to worry that anyone would have a bad side effect or reaction or an allergic reaction or anything else. And I've only found in all my work the intention for the flower essences. It's a choice. We can always override them. We can stay with the pattern that makes us more comfortable that we've built up. But it's like friends in a bottle. We're reaching for something because we want to change something that we've maybe come to understand about ourselves.
I love that, Jennifer.
And why not?
Jennifer, I love what you said, friends in a bottle, because a friend, a real friend, might not necessarily be available. So if you have a friend in a bottle, you could just tap in and get that relief in a way that maybe your physical friend wouldn't be able to share with you. You know, it can go deeper. So I love that phrase.
Yeah, and you, Carolyn and Matthew, and these others who work with plants, you know that they're our relatives. So that is the comfort, I think, in friends in the bottle, but also of all plants. I find if they've survived and lived, I want to benefit from that. So borage, we have beautiful borage here, and I want you, as long as we have been talking about the theme of water, to notice the dew on this flower picture that borage agreed to make with me, because I feel that all these pictures that Jerry and I have brought into the world through his skills in digital made it possible to actually partner with the plants so they create the portrait. And the dew is part of the natural way that water forms and creates our atmosphere too, because plants breathe into the atmosphere and create moisture. So we're all connected in that way. And sometimes this dew was one of the ways that Bach, the original 1930s founder of the 38 Beautiful Remedies, used. He used the dew first. So I sometimes lick the dew off the plants and think I'm licking rainbow prisms and the message of the plants. And so it makes sense to transfer that. But I want you to look at this picture and get a sense of what the flower might be sharing with you and how it makes you feel. And I welcome your input on this, because I get sometimes a word, or I get sometimes a feeling in my body, or I may have to back off a little bit from it. You just let that have whatever influence is needed for a minute here and feel that. And then I'll share at some point how my affirmations came for this particular talk as I put these pictures up in order. And you can jot down in your notes so that you have them later to share with us what maybe you got with borage right now, if you don't want to share it immediately. Where did it go in your body? How did you feel anything? I didn't hear if you shared. So now let's read together the attributes that I've. So often people will quote borage is for courage. And you see here what I've written. So I chose it as the first plant in order to encourage all of us to be willing to open to these plants today, and any messages they might have for us. So I've used this to raise my spirits and others. During 9/11, when you remember all the planes were downed, and so we couldn't get to, there was our Green Nations gathering on the East Coast. And we wondered if we were actually going to have that. And those of us who could drive, we all went. And I remember one woman who was still very much in shock. She just couldn't fathom this experience. And so I gave her borage flower essence. And her release came not only with breath, but with tears. And, you know, it's a release. Tears are also akin to rain when it falls out of the sky. So,
and Jennifer, I
those
think
are the
it's important
that we get from
Jennifer, I think it's important to just read the affirmation. Just read it yourself to avoid the feedback. But I do want to hear these affirmations read aloud. So would you do that for us, please?
Sure. I feel encouraged, and I have to get rid of my people's faces there. And encouraging towards myself and others.
Yes. And I love that you said borage raises our spirits and comforts our hearts. And you did mention that it is the organ of courage.
Yes, that's one that in Chinese medicine sits on top of the adrenals that sit on top of the kidneys. So there's our kidneys again.
Yes, imagine. Right on time. So the life situation, what will a person encounter before using it?
Yes, and so life situations are anything that you choose to focus on, and that's how we choose the flower essences. So in this case, I feel that we're often using the flower essence borage for overwork or feeling trapped. And again, that adrenal exhaustion, burnout. And this comes from a point of where we sometimes focus too much on the negative.
Mm-hmm.
That isn't a way of identifying. But I have to tell you from years of experience using flower essences, the balance between the virtue, which is the affirmation, or what we feel is our highest expression, and what we feel is blocking us, which is then looking at the negative, must come in. You can't negate either. You have to bring them into alignment and acknowledge both. Sometimes negativity is the biggest teacher we have.
Yes, it's true.
Because it moves us towards our virtue,
Mm-hmm.
which we all have inherent in us. So
yes, and we want to overcome loss of the soul. We want to retrieve our soul. And borage, I see, helps us do that. And you say here, it grounds and encourages stout-heartedness and renews hope and life-affirming choices. That's a beautiful goal, you know?
Yes. Now, again, just take that beautiful image in. Spend some time with that. Write down any impressions or share in the chat. I think if you can move into the chat, you can share there as a way to share later so I can read that. But to me, it's the sunshine right there. The sunshine of spring, and that is a lighter yellow. And yellow can have many meanings for us as well. Color is just as important as a way to be recorded in the water, as the shape of the flower and the intelligence of the flower.
Yes, and I want to say this, Jocelyn Perez Blanco, who I announced earlier at the beginning of this webinar, has joined us, and
good.
She put inner light. And Matthew said, I have seen borage work for the extreme exhaustion you described. So that means I'm going to have to run out and get some borage because I don't have any in the house, Matt. Yes.
Yeah, but you have
well,
lots.
You can ask your friend Jennifer to bring you lots of borage. I could send you little flowers, little in the bottle.
Jennifer,
in the bottle.
Jennifer, could you send me some borage, please?
Well, wait till we get through the whole garden of flowers. You're going to want them all.
Okay. No argument.
Oh, Tahid, I love that. Sunburst and warmth. Yes. Thank you.
Nice. And there you see the dandelion flower essence. Yes, you described. Continue.
Yeah, that's how we make it. Has to be a clear bowl in order to not have any other influences. And there you are. And it's sitting among all of its other flowering dandelions. So that gives you
Jennifer Alexis. I believe that's something that you could really warm up to. Knowing you.
Yes, I absolutely love flowers. So this is something that I see constantly in my backyard.
good.
Yeah, a lot of that. Now, so I'm hoping that there are other things that I'll notice that have been there all along. And I'll get the foraging.
That's right. The best school is Mother Nature.
Uh-huh. That's right.
Now, did I miss? Oh, did you do an affirmation for dandelion? I don't think so.
No, dandelion was just to bring in the sunshine and practice us a little bit for, getting our own intuition telling us how to use it. But I can say that it is for exactly what you've said, some of you in the chat, which has to do with warming, relaxing the body's muscle structure, when sometimes massage therapists can use this when people have had a hardening of the muscles from mental stress. You have to understand this is mental stress that sometimes holds the muscular system in a pattern that then becomes something that becomes painful, blocking, and we can't move with the flow of our beautiful selves and our bodies. So I tend to find that the massage people like this for that. And the yellow color would be about bringing out more of our ego sense of our personality, a healthy personality. So that would be the solar plexus area, if any of you work with the chakra systems. Okay, the next one.
And I just want to interject that Jocelyn mentioned that many times the plants you need the most will be the closest, even your yard. So go on a hunt, Jennifer.
Yes.
What have we?
Thank you, Matthew. He said dandelion is good for manic depressive. Yeah. Thank you.
Right. Thank you.
So here is dogwood. And we're going to pause here for a moment and let you get a sense of dogwood and what it might want to tell you or share with you today for something. I like the number 4 that the petals are showing us. So there's the aspect of 4 very strong in this plant. A spring tree, native to Pennsylvania and the East. Oh, Matthew, this dogwood is one that is the native Pennsylvania dogwood that was growing in my fields.
It's not Florida dogwood then, which is common over there.
Well, now you have me
wondering
over a barrel. Yes. Yeah. I just know that I can identify it from the ones that people have planted in their yards. This one was low enough because
is this the one that in the spring you see kind of a purple haze in the woods where that it flowers before all the other trees? Oh yeah.
Yes, so that's it.
Cornus florida of that Jocelyn mentions there. So yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So the affirmation, would you read it for us, Jennifer?
I move with grace through life's changes, in balance between the material and the spirit.
That's so beautiful.
So I found that I used this. I was very accident prone at a point in my life, and I wondered what that meant. So I think it was Louise Hayes, Carolyn, that I might have also steered me towards a sense of unconscious violence towards oneself. I was shocked, completely shocked. I needed something that would affirm that that was not truly what direction I was going. So that's when I've learned too, the sense of grace in the body and a sense of resurrecting oneself out of some of those negativities. So awkwardness, accident prone, balance issues. So maybe even if you're starting something that you want to be athletic in, or starting something that has to do with movement, it doesn't always have to be the negative reason that you take a flower essence. It can be to continually affirm what it is that you are wanting to bring forth from your own soul's experience and expression on the planet.
Thank you for saying that, because a lot of times people think that it's just to cure something, but it is to build something as well, to establish something in the spirit.
Yep.
And Thais said purity, simple union of the four wind directions, unifying and centering. She's a dancer
Ooh,
as
that's
well.
so
She can
beautiful.
feel it. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I love that. I love these beautiful things that you're sharing.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
So I like a flower of resurrection after a long, hard winter. So that means we need to get it in the house at the ready, have it at the ready, because we're headed in. And
yeah.
Would you share our relationship to gravity?
Well, that comes from the way that we have to lift our body continuously up. You know, when we started in the world, we were on our backs. Then we had to roll over on our tummies and start lifting ourselves up as our spine developed and the strength.
Yeah.
And then we come up and stand on our feet. Yeah. And so this is something we do every day.
And
elder.
That's blessing. Yeah.
So Mother Elder is one of the plants that when I first met my teacher, Evelyn, she had a beautiful big elder plant. It's a bush, a tall tree, kind of bushy tree that was by her back door. And I thought, ooh, after that, I've always associated elders with wise women. And even if I find them wild in the woods, I consider that maybe a place where one should sit and learn from the wild woman of the woods. So she's pretty sacred, guardian of our life garden. So I also plant her in every garden that I create because it's considered she is kind of the one who tells all the other plants in the garden how to behave. It's also a wise grandmotherly spirit. And the affirmation is, I am a wise woman.
Mm-hmm.
So it can be, just because the word elder is there, it resonates more for me as I grow older. But it also worked very nicely as a young woman. So even if you're a caregiver, a nurturer, and you have mothering roles, we're also counselors, negotiators, friends. And I like the fact that I believe this plant helps us remember the natural law and the stewardship of our choices to create a lifestyle that is in harmony and more akin to nature. So I think you know that elderflower's fruit is elderberry and gets very much attention around tinctures and making it for the pandemic and also viruses and so forth. So the nourishing part is also the berry. So the fullness of the power of midsummer's abundance.
Yeah.
Wow, this should bring out some feelings for people. I would anxious to see what it is. Anybody been writing more in the chat? Let me know what you think Ellie Campaign is. The Latin name for this is Helena Innula, and it kind of refers back in European lore to Helen of Troy, who was abducted. And that story works as a folklore story for some aspect of thinking of ourselves uprooted, wherever we feel ourselves uprooted. We have a sense of, in her case, the tears fell to the ground and created this flower. So we have within that story the parts of ourselves, a sense of the possible divinity of ourselves in the sense of the royal color, a little bit more gold, deeply gold. And the taking away from our queendom, if you will, or kingdom. So this is the flower essence being made. And again, I want you to just call your attention to how the elements are so simple. I just have placed the bowl on a rock, which brings in, the element of the earth and the minerals. It's open to the air and to the sunlight to make this beautiful infusion that will later, the waters will teach my waters of my body.
Yeah. And
So,
Jennifer, I would like to ask Matthew what the doctrine of signatures tells him.
Oh, well, I mean, it's so strongly radiant and, it really strengthens the lungs. The leaves are great, very, very big leaves. And I find that big leaves are often, that's breathing, that's the plant's lung. And so it's a lung remedy, very good for bronchitis. And anytime there's a green pus remedy, will always, which is pretty good to know. You don't need an antibiotic, or after they've used lots and lots of antibiotics and they still have the green pus. This will still work.
Yes, that's good. And Jocelyn gives plant walks in Queens.
Oh, wow.
And I would like to hear, is there a campaign where you forage?
I have never come across Ella campaign in the parks department, in any of the New York City parks. I have seen it purposely grown in a lot of our community gardens, though. It's wonderful. I love it. It's especially, cold and flu season. My husband is prone to getting like spastic coughs, and which would keep him up at night. And this is my go-to remedy. If you haven't, for those of you who haven't tried it, make a decoction of the roots, and it has a very strong, like piney, almost like turpentine type of scent to it, but it tastes, I love it. We love it. So yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yep.
An environmental herbalist. So she piqued my attention.
And I learned from Jennifer that it's a plant for homesickness.
So that does refer to the homesickness aspect. Is I stand my ground. I am beauty and strength. And maybe somebody else can see that last part. I am unique. Yes. So we have all moved around maybe from our original places, but if we aren't happy with that, we need to have a way to settle into where we are newly planted, or that we have newly planted ourselves. If you want a symbol for how I think of the homesickness or the aspect of abduction, in any way that you want to interpret that as an energy in your life.
Wow.
And yes, I love using it for the lungs. So anytime you're going to move or change location, change jobs or living arrangements or anything, I would think that Ellie campaign was going to stand your next ground.
Okay. And that's good to know, because I'm rearranging the house. So I'm going to be chucking that down this weekend. Here we have
now purple iris. So I wanted to point out that some plants that we maybe wouldn't use that often in their physical sense as medicine. This is the domesticated iris that we grow in our gardens. Then as a flower essence, they can be safely used because there is no material aspect in the water. So understanding that, you're getting the inspiration. And so here there is no affirmation to go with these, but I know that the purple flag, which is the native iris, Matthew has a wonderful way to contribute to today's talk about iris. Matthew, do you want to say what you've taught us about iris?
Yeah, the wild iris, the blue flag, it's a beautiful flower, and it is very good. And it's interesting. It grows kind of where the water outlets, like under the mountain, where the water comes up to the surface to like there's a spring, or there's just maybe it's downstream from the spring, or it's even in the swamp a little bit below the spring, but it kind of comes out where the water comes out. So it's purity that way of water. And I learned both from Native Americans and white people living way up in the north that where the water is clean, there will be irises in the ponds or in the, yeah. So there's that. And then it's good for leaky gut, causing thyroid up and down, and kind of overuse, like your metabolism is doing the digestion for you. So the liver and the thyroid get overused. Hyperthyroid, hyperglycemia, hypo. But then finally, it's a beautiful, I think, from the Bach flower essences, it's a general, I find it a general depression remedy, like people that lack creativity. It opens the top of the head, like to the heavens, to your personal, to your, group and personal spiritual meaning in the world. And I've thought recently, in the last 6 months, I've just met a lot of young people that just feel despair because the world that they're inheriting is so much worse than the one we older people inherited.
Yes.
And they feel a lack of that they can deal with it. And so I think inspiration, at top of your head open to God, so to speak, or to the heavens, is kind of, because you just look at the planets open to on the top. I open up, to the, so that's my take. Yeah.
And thank you, because of you, I do have that in my arsenal.
Ah, yeah. And it is,
and I think we've mentioned
all dose remedy.
and it is Matthew's also taught us that it's when you're really stuck, and when an artist is in their artist's funk, can't write,
Yeah.
can't work. So yeah, and that is drawing again on your higher divine and bringing it down into the world.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
What about ladies?
So here's another plant. It collects, this beautiful plant collects the dew. And since this theme was so much about reminding us about the water and how much water is life, then this plant seems important as the green. There's very few flowers that flower green, and you can see the little tiny green flowers forming up on there. So that's an aspect for you to meditate on with this beautiful plant and her openings.
Yes, it's gorgeous.
And share anything in the chat that you have for that, because it's pretty, the edge, it has got that little toothy edge, and you notice that. So tears. Repairing tears, and that could be tears in the energy field, just as it is in our own physical body's wounds. Anyone have anything to add to this? Okay, moving on to lilac. Here is lilac being made in the flower essence way that I do, by putting the gems around the outside of the bowl to also bring in the gem influences into the environment while making the flower essence. So when I read to you earlier, the lilac and amethyst, there's also a fluorite down there. The bottom, that's a big fluorite clump naturally formed.
Yes. And Jocelyn made a comment, so beautiful, and it really is, Jennifer.
Making flower essences is like making altars in nature, and then being able to take that beautiful, holy aspect in collaboration with the nature into our bodies. How could it not enhance the work we do in the world?
That's right.
So Lilac's affirmation is, I am worthy. I give and receive. Many of us, me included, have a very hard time receiving. And so this plant has taught me. And I also take it before I go for any chiropractic adjustments. I think I learned that from another flower essence maker, that it has the ability to start to hold the spine in integrity. And since I have some scoliosis and injuries, that spine, I am always concerned about making sure that I'm upright and flexible. So it's when we get too self-reliant that we don't allow and trust others in, or it's if we're too dependent and we've become through some situation. And I believe the flower essence maker, David Dalton, has a very good monograph on these very themes. If you want to look up some of his work, Delta Gardens.
Yes. Yes.
So
and
if we just,
Jennifer, I want to mention something. I think we should both take lilac before we have our Zoom tea dates, so we won't go through the, I'll give you this. No, how can you, you know, we need to just go ahead and say, okay, I'll take it. So that's right. A mental
posture. Thank you. I'll do that. In the last line here, the slump posture. If you stay too long in your slump posture, you will notice that your self-esteem starts to go down. So, how we hold our bodies, you know, is important to how we project an aspect of ourselves into the world. So
yes. And poor posture also brings on sciatica problems and other problems in our body, the straining on the muscles. Oxeye daisy.
You remember, I don't know if you ever did this, whenever you'd find a daisy, loves me not, he loves me not.
Yeah, I've done it.
So when I was teaching flower essences in a workshop up in New York one time, daisy was glowing all over in the fields, and I thought, okay, well, this will be the flower essence. And I always asked plants, what do you have to teach? What would you like to teach? Because they're really the teachers. I'm just sometimes the voice. So it said the diversity of all of what we're learning is what my petals are, bringing in that life experience to that central yellow intelligence so that we can give it back out to the world as wisdom. So, educators, I integrate learning and life experience into wisdom. So this would be for teachers, educators, anyone who wants to share information that they have had life experience with, so it is authentic.
Yes.
And
Jennifer says it reminds her of summertime.
And it's also kind of like a girl who just likes to run around in blue jeans and a t-shirt. It's that kind of flower.
Yes, yes. It's that kind of girl. What about red clover blossom?
Boy, that looks pretty scary, doesn't it?
No, it looks delicious.
Looks flame-like to me, and it is often used for panic.
Yes.
So there you see a kind of group panic going in all directions.
Mm-hmm.
But there's going to be a calmness in the person who is responding to being that kind of red clover energy in the crowd as it panics. And we have talked a lot about panics. It happens to be the root word for pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's important for us to connect to how other people might be influencing that energy around us, and we need to make sure we don't trigger into that. So
yes, and would you read the affirmation for that?
I tame the flames of panic. I know myself deeply rooted in heart and soul.
Oh.
So this helps us know ourselves.
Mm-hmm. That is so beautiful and so needed in these times. We have a lot of sensitive people around.
Yep. And that would be your life situation, is for that kind of thing, losing themselves.
Yes. So it calms the heart to regain clarity of thought, neutrality, and presence of mind. It helps you focus on your individuality with larger groups, personal choice, and self-identity. There's so much going on nowadays. It is very difficult to have a personal choice. You're almost maligned if you have a personal choice. So you need that kind of balance that red clover brings. I'm happy to say I had some. It's in my self-care collection as well. Tell us about St. John's wort, Jennifer.
Yep, this is the plant of the sun, the midsummer sun, the time when our summer solstice is. Very beautiful healing plant. And again, I think it has to do with raising our energy out of depression. I've used it so much as an herb, but here within the flower essence aspect, I learned a long time ago, and I don't remember what source, might have been Pismal Crow, huh? Matthew, for the protection of children, that the native communities used to plant it so that the witches couldn't come and steal children's souls. So that's like really scary children's story. So I always use this in protection aspects.
When you're done, I'll tell his story that he told. Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, you can tell it now.
Okay, so in one of his classes, there was a woman who had a home daycare that was illegal because you have to register with the state and stuff. So she couldn't really complain to the police, but this guy, this really weird middle-aged guy who lived with his mother down the street, he would come down and he would call the children's names, and these are just 3 and 4-year-olds, and steal their ball and stuff, and it just was like crazy. And so Tismal said, we'll protect psychic energy in general, not just children. We'll use St. John's wort, we'll plant it all around the yard and along the sidewalk and all along. And they were only partway done with that when he came down the street, and he fell over and panicked and ran away and never bothered them again.
It did its job.
There you have it.
I met the woman. I mean, both she and he told the story, so it's a true story.
Thank you, Matthew. That's probably what now I have it anchored in my memory where it came from. Thank you.
Yes. And I do use St. John's wort regularly as well. So wonderful herb and flower.
Yeah. And we noted that we can circle back around to your first introduction about taking your vaccine today. I think it was Matthew that taught me. And so I did use it when I went for my vaccination. And mainly when I checked in, it was to give me the, the protection, but also a sense of self-empowerment.
Yes.
And so that was how I wanted to use it. That my immune system will have the wisdom in it to know what this foreign thing being put in is, and that what it's for. I hope.
And I also use
benefit.
Louise Hay's affirmation, I'm in perfect health, and claim my body's wisdom for healing and not succumbing to any of the ingredients in the vaccination.
Yeah, and that fear of needles and vaccination, that comes from Kim Dudley, who's deceased now, who was an herbalist in Canberra, Australia. So I just love the fact that this is like an international, this comes from the Middle East and Europe before it got to the United States. But now it's an international plant. You'd have it in Australia too. But herbalists everywhere love the plant and use it. And that was some of his contributions. And he had tremendous case histories on it, also for war injuries, injury in a theater of war.
Could you please put his name in the chat, please?
Yeah, I'll send you.
Please. So we can have
Kim Dudley.
Okay, good.
And he was
we've spoken to him so much, yeah.
Yeah, and he was a practical nurse, but he was a full-time herbalist. He worked. His friends told me his students 6 days a week, from 7 a.m. till 7 p.m, even on his deathbed in the hospital, and he was still helping people.
Wow, that's so beautiful. What a beautiful way to leave.
Yeah, right. Yes, very good.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So this is my Evelyn plant. And you see the heart shape of the leaf and that color purple. Yeah. And I helped a child once whose name was Violet. And her family was being brutally kind of influenced by their neighbors. And she was shrinking more and more into herself. And her mother brought me. And I thought, here's her name that's speaking for the flower, that she simply needs that beautiful virtue from. And the whole family ended up moving away from that situation. And it was the daughters who chose to go live or stay more often at friends' places until the parents got it.
Yeah, I use violet. I use violet leaf in my tonics as well. Very wonderful herb.
It'll bring out that sense. The violet will bring out that sense when we retreat ourselves too far. It's a very early spring plant that's very brave and can handle even early frosts from spring. And the white bleeding heart. Oh, the white pine, yes, yes.
What about the white bleeding heart? Tell us something briefly about white bleeding heart.
I guess I've used that, the white one, for the transition in grief, both for if it's children dying, it looks, or children that are sick, or any of those kinds of innocence aspect. You see how that actually looks to me like a little infant or a young bird. And it's also shaped like the heart. But the aspect of the white seems to have that more spiritual component to it. So maybe miscarriages, things where there's a sense of loss.
Right. And I'm studying to be an abortion doula. So that's definitely something I should have in my arsenal.
That's exactly, I guess, why I put it in. Yeah. Intuitively, that's it. That speaks very clearly to that. Yeah.
Okay. White pine.
White pine. Yep. The tree that's right in my yard, that's for peace. It's also for the lungs. I like to make tea out of the needles. So the pollen that comes from that little, what you see, that little undeveloped little part there.
Yes.
And that's the pollen that floats on the water when we make the flower essence.
Oh.
But I wanted to put this in because it has this outreaching shape. There's 5 needles to white pine in a clump, 5 needles in each clump. And that's change. And I have found that through the whole last 3 years, this tree has just been a tree that grounds, brings peace, completely helps with any of the fears that arise around whether we will, have health through this challenge. So can be many things for many people, but I wanted to refresh our breath with this, the connection to the breath.
Yes. And what I would like to do is just go back to tulip poplar. We missed that one.
Oh, well, Matthew. A quick story. I first met tulip poplar as a corner cupboard in an antique store, and it called to me. So plants can call to you even when their form has been completely changed into something that's been worked by someone else into a form of furniture. And I asked the antique dealer, I said, why is this so different? This wood feels different to me than the rest of the wood in these other furniture pieces.
Yeah.
And it had a slight green tint to it that I could see. And he said, oh, that's tulip poplar, tulip tree. So I didn't know anything about tulip tree. And then I had to go find out about tulip tree. And then I made a flower essence because one day driving over to Evelyn's, nature called. I had to get out of the car, find a private place. It happened to be under a blooming, tiny, young tulip tree. But
Wow.
Matthew has taught us how much it's for the tired heart that can't feel like it can go on. And I use it for the parasympathetic nervous system, which to me helps align that side of myself if fear or anxiety has become an imbalance to my fight or flight natural ways of being. Very amazing tree to sit under, and it talks to us very nicely on the farm. I have more stories, but I won't. So Matthew, if you want to contribute, I know you know a lot about tulip tree. We could spend the next half hour or an hour on it.
Yeah, it's an old Native American heart tonic, heart remedy, southern heart remedy. And Bismarck did teach us, and Phyllis Light has mentioned it too, and Sandra Boyd. So it's a real McCoy ancient heart tonic, and it's both metaphorical and physically for the heart. And I hadn't really put my finger on it, but you did. Yes, it really gets you into your parasympathetic, which I think is very important actually in COVID. At least the way it attacked me, I could feel it. It attacked my heart or aorta, which has parasympathetic receptors. I use Nigella instead of this, but I can just feel that it would have the same effect and relax that parasympathetic, relax it. So that's one aspect of COVID that's in the literature, but it's not in popular imagination, that it makes it hard for you to relax. It attacks your parasympathetic kind of balance. So, yeah.
And Jocelyn has a comment. Jocelyn?
Oh, I was just adding a fun fact. I was just throwing
Go ahead.
fact into the chat. But yeah, that we have a lot of tulip trees here in New York City, and the largest one is in Alley Pond Park. It's ginormous. But I love when I'm leading walks, I'll grab a small twig and cut it open, and everyone can smell. It smells like mandarins, like citrusy. It's absolutely delicious. And there have been like traditional uses where it was apparently used. The inner bark was used as an aphrodisiac. And they grow very straight. So yeah, they were used in canoe making by the indigenous peoples. So I was just throwing some fun facts in there.
We love fun facts. We learn from all of you. Yes. And we spoke about white pine, and we're on our last flower of the webinar of our session. Would you introduce zinnia to us, which my mother had plenty of in our backyard? And as long as we're talking about a fun fact, it's a great laxative. And I always like to say that I wish my mother had known so she could have kept that milk of magnesia out of my mouth, you know?
Well, I haven't used zinnia that way, but I think it might be the joy that we wanted to end on, and the joy in the heart, and the aspect of childlike way of seeing the world. So it is the kind of laughter that comes bubbling out of children. So when you need that, reach for your zinnia bottle.
And lastly,
well, we started with affirmations, and we should end with an affirmation. And this is Echinacea affirmation, and this is from the Flower Essence Society people, Kaminsky and I can't remember another name, but you can Google them. They've had wonderful research for many years in bringing these flower essences to practitioners all over the world. So this is their way of bringing an affirmation to the work that we do. I stand strong within myself. I meet adversity with inner strength. My core self is sacrosanct, and I am this luminous self.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. And there's our Jennifer in her learning garden. Is that not the learning garden?
Yes,
Jennifer?
it is.
I love this photograph.
So that's this feverfew and in front of me to my right there, and then that's Mother Elder, the bush behind me.
So wonderful. And I would like to say that you could see the botanical series by going to www.jennifer-tucker.com. Jennifer, what a wonderful presentation. And we hope that you'll visit us again in the future at the Healing Project. And of course, I'll be seeing you for tea soon. You have any last words for the people?
I'm just very grateful to have had sharing this time with you, and your contributions as well. Very fulfilling. Thank you.
Our pleasure.
Thank you.
And we wanted to, since Matthew was coming, let everyone know that he has 2 new books out, Holistic Medicine and the Extracellular Matrix, The Science of Healing at the Cellular Level, and a project that I helped him complete. I'm so proud of it, 7 guideposts on the spiritual path, the shamanic story in Genesis. You want to say anything about your books before we sign off, Matthew?
The Matrix book, that teaches us how the justification of holistic medicine is now scientific, because the matrix controls the cells. The cells don't have an independent life. Our whole organism on the cellular level is one unit and one mind, and that's the science. And so alternative holistic medicine is verified. And then 7 guideposts is related to that 7 herbs book that Jennifer showed earlier. And this is interpretation of Genesis, the shamanic story. Each patriarch and matriarch, each personality in the book is like a spiritual guidepost, a spiritual story personified as a human being, from Adam and Eve to Joseph and Tamar in the last generation. So yeah, it's a really unique and great book. So
yes, it is. They both are. Thank you, Matthew. And as we end this year with detoxification of the brain, our guest will be my aromatherapy instructor, Amy Anthony. You'll be happy to meet her as well. And I would like you all to realize and understand that life is all about change, and it's changing all the time. Whether you want to or not, you're changing, okay? And I would like to thank you so much for coming. You've done my heart good. I'm glowing over here. I don't know if you could see, but I feel it. I feel my aura just reaching out to you. And I look forward to seeing you next month. And of course, Jocelyn, I think we have a tea scheduled this evening. Yes. All right. So I love you all. Unmute yourself so you can say goodbye to everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you for coming. I love you all.
I love you.
Love
too.
you back.
Thank you. Bye-bye.